Good ball played in for Tony Morley. Oh, he must be! And it is! Peter Will!
Good evening, beautiful people. Craig Storrod here, at Craig Storrod on Twitter. And I am joined by the one, the only, Andrew Bates at K2 Villa to celebrate Aston Villa's 4-0 thumping of Ajax Amsterdam to book our place firmly in the quarterfinals, where we have now drawn French outfit Lille. It's not a Lille tie though, is it, Andy? How you doing?
No, it's not. It's another big tie, isn't it? A sort of one that sets the imagination going. But yeah, really good. Couldn't actually make the game last night in the end. So my ticket wasn't used, unfortunately. But I did see the game live on the box. So yeah, really good. Really pleased. What a way to bounce back.
An incredible way to bounce back. Aston Villa through to the quarterfinals of European football for the first time in some time. I'm not sure exactly when it is. Was it the 1990s? Was it the Atletico Madrid famous tie with Collymore banging one in the top corner? Was that the last time we were in the quarterfinals of Europe?
Yeah, I think that was definitely a quarterfinal, but I think there was probably a round less in that competition at that time. So that would have been the first tie after Christmas. So you'd have had the couple of rounds before Christmas and then the quarterfinals. So I think this is the first time we've actually won a two-legged knockout tie after Christmas since about 1983.
Unai Emery, Andy, at the first time I'm asking. This man is an alchemist, is he not?
I mean, yeah, he's breaking records every week at this point, and he has, to be honest, he's been doing that since the first few months he was here. If it's not one of his players, if it's not Ollie Watkins breaking records, it's the manager. So yeah, it's when you look at it in those terms. I mean, we regard ourselves, don't we, as a big club that should be in Europe. But when you look at that, I mean, a pretty poor record, really. But this is where we are. We're back on the big stage, albeit the Conference League. But it's there are plenty of other clubs that would love to be in our position, I feel sure.
Yeah, I mean, it is the pedigree of the two contestants last night in Ajax and Aston Villa. The pedigree cannot be questioned. Ajax, an even bigger club than Aston Villa, for my money anyway. One of the giant names of European football. Yes, they are not in the best moment, but football is cyclical. They'll be back, I'm sure. But Ajax is still Ajax, just as Juventus is still Juventus, so on and so forth. We will get on to the game at Villa Park against Ajax first. But first, Andy, because we weren't able to record a normal show this week, we should probably have a brief chat, however uncomfortable, about the 4-0 defeat to Spurs. So I was giving it the Barry McGuigan last week on this show. I was really confident. I thought we'd at least draw. I thought that we would maybe win, and then if we did win, I thought that was Champions League signed, sealed, and delivered. But I also did say on this show last week that if we lost, it wasn't the end of the world and the sky wouldn't have fallen. But the 4-0 defeat, Andy, you were there in the whole tent. It may have felt like the sky had fallen on last Sunday.
It was a miserable afternoon. It really was in all aspects. I thought the ground was pretty quiet. I think 1 o'clock on a Sunday is a bit like the graveyard shift, really, and the ground wasn't as bouncing as it has been for other kind of really big important games this season. But part of that, I think, as well was how Villa kind of set up and the way Spurs really kind of pushed us back from from the word go. We found it very, very difficult to play out or to make any progress going forward. Spurs looked very comfortable in what they were doing. Obviously, they've got excellent elite players who are very good on the ball and very dangerous. It was an afternoon that brings you back down to earth with a bump. If you know what I mean, it was
a chastening affair, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely, really. And I think the manner of the defeat, the way, really just straight after half time, 6 minutes or so, they went 2-0 up, and then it was obviously we were up against it then, and the sending off obviously just ended it really, and the third and fourth goals were really just bonuses for Spurs. That was always going to happen, I think.
So let's just we're not going to go too deep on this one, but let's just cover the main points. Some people saying Unai Emery got the selection wrong. Were you? But also on the other hand, if his plan was to stifle Spurs, he did that very, very well in the first half. Spurs didn't have a shot. So it was working to a point, or did you feel from the get-go it was just the wrong setup for your taste?
No, I think this is the thing we always say when Unai Emery picks a team or there's a slight change or a tweak, we have to wait and see how it pans out because he knows best, doesn't he? And I think, to me, it didn't look like it was ever going to be a sort of back five as such. You always got the feeling that obviously Luca Dean and Matty Cash are normally very attacking fullbacks. And I think as well, there were obviously periods of time where Pau Torres was right up in midfield as well. So it was very fluid. I just felt that maybe the players weren't overly comfortable. I think if they played that way for a few weeks, I think it would develop and whatever Unai Emery was trying to do would start to work. But I think you're struggling if you're changing the system to that extent with 1 or 2 days sort of training, really. So
I mean, there was some. The idea, I think, was to catch Spurs on the counter attack, and Villa did have a couple of breakaways. One which I know was offside, but if that was the plan to kind of counter attack them. I mean, I'm always glass half full, and I know that this is sickening at points with people, but my feeling is, and this might be me making excuses, even though Unai Emery has a no excuse culture, I do not have a no excuse culture. I will make an excuse faster than you can say excuse. So my interpretation of the Tottenham game was, Unai saw that the emotional and kind of physical toll of the big event, the big evening in Ajax, that the lads just didn't have didn't have it in the legs to go toe to toe with Spurs. So he adjusted accordingly, and it worked until we made a couple of errors, and by then it was too late. I just don't think we had the legs with the injuries and all the other stuff, and the emotional. People underestimate like the emotional drain of that fixture last week in Holland. So that's me giving Unai the benefit of the doubt. But a 4-0 win is a 4-0 win. 4-0 defeat, is a 4-0 defeat, and there's no way to dress it up, particularly when it's against your nearest challengers. So Spurs now have it in their own hands, Andy. They do have a game in hand on us where they can overtake us, but that game in hand is away at Stamford Bridge, where Spurs do not have a good record, and Chelsea have. Well, you never know what Chelsea are really Jekyll and Hyde. How they might show up, you don't know. So I suppose the good news is, thanks to our victory yesterday, and particularly West Ham's victory against Freiburg, it now looks more and more likely that 5th place is going to secure Champions League football next season. So bearing that in mind, this defeat, again, just a few days later, Friday, March 15th, as we're recording now, the defeat now doesn't feel quite as bad to me, but that, again, might be my glass half full positiveness running wild.
Yeah, I mean it's a long season, isn't it? And there's still plenty of points to play for. That's the fact of the matter. And Spurs can lose points, and Villa can take points, or vice versa. It's still all to play for. It's virtually level, isn't it? With 30 or so points to still up for grabs. So it can go either way, really. I think the worst thing about it is, like you say, losing. It's the confidence of losing to your nearest rivals so badly as well, and also losing Jhon McGinn for 3 games in the process. And I think that's the worst thing. I'd be definitely more upset and more concerned if we lose on Sunday. I think that would be, a much worse situation. When you're playing against teams like Spurs, or teams in the top 4 or 5, you can lose to anyone, and at that level, they're such elite players. They can take a game away from you very quickly if you're not quite on it, which we weren't. So that's not the end of the world. It's when you're losing games that really you should be winning, or you're expected to win, really. So I'm not massively concerned, and I think there's enough time to go. Look, it's the run in. Anything can happen. Both Spurs and Villa have still got to play the top 3 as well.
Yeah.
So obviously that can make a difference.
Yeah.
Both teams can have an impact on the title race, and also it'll be telling in the race for sort of 4th and 5th, and maybe 6th. If United get their act together, so they're not out of the picture yet either. So it's
I think they are. It's highly doubtful, Man United. But
I mean, if we're saying Man United are out of the picture, then we're probably home and hosed anyway, because, like you say, the likelihood is that it will go to 5th for qualification. I'm a bit old-fashioned. I don't like qualifying. It feels like a bit of a backdoor qualification. I'd like to finish 4th, but
backdoor, front door. You just need to get in the building.
Well, that's true, and I've been reminded of that by other people when I've said that as well. But
yeah. Just get in.
Yeah, either way, it doesn't. When it starts again in September, when the Champions League music's playing, you don't care where you finish, do you? Really? So yeah, it's but I think we're still going to have to win a decent proportion of games, and that's why I'd be more alarmed if we lost on Sunday, which is not impossible. West Ham they played a storming game last night. They were excellent. So
we'll know what Spurs have done, because Spurs are playing in the evening kickoff away against Fulham, which is not a foregone conclusion. Fulham, as we know ourselves, tricky customers, particularly at home. So we'll know what we need to do. And if Spurs lose and we win on Sunday, all of a sudden we're back to square one. Last point on the Spurs game before we move on to some Ajax beautifulness. Jhon McGinn, red card, yes or no, Andy?
Yeah, it was a red card, yeah.
Well, I
wasn't surprised. Even at the time, I just thought, I know what he's trying to do. He's had a couple of minutes, well, sort of 30 seconds or so before that, where he's gone flying in a couple of times trying to win the ball, trying to get the crowd going, trying to inject a bit of energy into the Villa performance, and he's just chased after Ndogi, hasn't he? And he's properly gone for him. You can't even say he was going for the ball. I mean,
no, he wasn't going for the ball.
It was. I can see where it came from and why he was doing it. It was a bit of frustration. He's trying to be aggressive and inject something into his team, into his teammates, and into the fans. But yeah, he's totally mistimed it, and it's a bad one, really.
It is a bad one, and now we're missing him for the next 3 games. But let's everyone get out your mouthwash. We're gonna gargle that one away. The horrible Tottenham result. Let's talk about the glorious 4-0 win against Ajax. All right, so we're coming into it off the back, obviously, of that Spurs defeat, a 0-0 draw, which we covered on this show last week at the Johan Cruyff Arena in Amsterdam. strong 11. Obviously, we knew Ezri Konsa was suspended for this one. We saw the return to the starting lineup for Diego Carlos, who might be the new gingerbread man. We'll get more onto that later. Dibu Martinez in goal. Matty Cash at right back. Diego Carlos returning to partner Pau Torres. Longley on the bench for the first time since December, I saw somewhere. Incredible run of games he's had, and he ended up having to play this one as well. Moreno at left back over Luca Dean. Rogers filling in continued to deputise for Jacob Ramsey on the left wing. Douglas Luiz and John McGinn in midfield. Leon Bailey and Moussa Diaby, rarely seen together on an Aston Villa starting 11, but they were there, and Ollie Watkins obviously started up front. To me, this was a super attacking lineup. 4 forwards basically, in Rogers, Bailey, Diaby and Watkins, and it seemed clear to me, Andy, that Unai Emery was going to go for the jugular here.
Yeah, he wasn't messing about, was he? He was he picked all his big attacking weapons really, and it was exciting to see. He obviously felt that Ajax were there for the taking, whoever played really, and the thing you always know with Emery is that he doesn't just go hell for leather. You know, he's not. It's not like Ozzy Ardiles picking his front five at Tottenham all those years ago. You know, there's a plan, and these players have defensive duties and responsibilities and know what they're doing in that regard as well. So, you know, they're not just all standing on the halfway line waiting for the ball. You know, so it's exciting when he kind of does this, and whenever he plays, whenever you see Diaby and Bailey on the field together, there is this excitement because both of them, I mean, you know, we've talked about Diaby and his lack of form, but both of them are incredibly capable of turning a game and winning a match. And they play so well together as well when they link up on that side. I've said before, when usually if you've got 2 players like that, 2 wide players, they'll play either side, won't they? One will play left, one will play right, either side of the striker. But they come off the same side, and it's exhilarating, really, because they're so fast and so skillful, and I mean Bailey's just on fire, isn't he? So it's really exciting to see, and then seeing Morgan Rogers on the other side and having 1 or 2 nice moments as well, and probably could have done better with one particular chance he had. It's really exciting to see. What were your thoughts of that sort of front 4, as you say?
Yeah, they looked completely dynamic. They looked frightening. They were terrifying Ajax, as you say. It's I don't remember. I'm sure I've seen it before. 2 wingers on 1 wing, like you say, and the 2 of them dovetailed perfectly. They're both super fast. Obviously, they have an existing relationship back at Bayer Leverkusen, and they seem to really bring out the best in each other. And it was Diaby's best game that I can remember off the top of my head. He capped it off with a goal as well. He looked much more like himself, perhaps boosted also Diaby by his surprising call-up to the French team, I would have thought. I mean, he was flying at the beginning of the season and didn't get a sniff, and now he's been struggling, but he's in. But whatever. Obviously, that will have cheered him up, and it was good to see. But even in the second half, we'll get onto the second half in a minute, but with Rogers off and Tielemans in, when we switched to kind of a 4-3-3 almost with Durán, who is a proper box office Jhon, as I'm calling him, Andy. That kind of 4-3-3 with those 2 absolutely flying down either side, and Durán causing absolute havoc, sometimes for us and sometimes against us, in the middle of the as that kind of that point. And then you've also got the 3 midfielders together. Tielemans looked infinitely more comfortable in a 3-man midfield than he does in a 2-man midfield, or that he does on the wing, or even up front, actually. So that's also perhaps a way to unlock Tielemans. That looked to me, if we do have a problem with Watkins, that could be a viable thing that would frighten people. A 4-3-3 with Diaby and Bailey flying at you either side is not is probably a little bit better with a 4-3-3 with Andre Green and Bjerke Bjarnason flying at you either side, Andy.
Yeah, I think it is definitely, or it should certainly be an option, and I'm sure, you know, Emery perhaps has one eye on that, and he had a little look at it last night, didn't he? And yeah, it looked good. You know, I think Ajax had probably gone by that point, but I think whether he is open to sort of switching his formation to that, because we've never seen it from him, have we? We've never seen a 4-3-3. Or even the sort of 4-2-3-1, which he kind of played at Arsenal. I don't feel like we see that specifically either. It is more of a 4-4-2 every week, isn't it? So it would be interesting. I think you have to maybe at this stage of the season as well, sort of open up to some of these options, and like you say, it's more about the fact that the midfield, covering the midfield with McGinn out. You know, do you need three guys in there if you haven't got obviously Boubacar Kamara and Jhon McGinn with Douglas Luiz in a double pivot? Do you need an extra body in there really? And how do you account for that?
Well, this is something we might find out sooner than later, because on the 19th minute, Andy, our star striker Ollie Watkins goes down clutching his knee, literally put his shirt over his head, and we're all, I'm sure, at panic stations there. That it's another ACL. Certainly the group chat exploded, the Twitter exploded, everyone was panicking. I was only reassured because the US commentary, which I think was Ian Dark, just said, no, it's a cut. It's not. And obviously he was able to continue for another few minutes. And then less than 10 minutes later, he rises like a salmon from the clutches of a bear to a Douglas Luiz corner and scores an almost identical goal that he did against Luton a couple of weeks ago from a corner. And he did it on one leg, Andy, and despite a challenge from Matty Cash at the back door. What do you think of this header from Watkins? It was pretty interesting.
Superb, isn't it? I mean, he's obviously in a fair bit of pain. You know, even though he hasn't done his ACL, which was my first. The way he reacted to it, the way he kind of, his head went in his hands and he couldn't look at it, and he was writhing, wasn't he? It looked like he was really upset, like he knew he'd done something major.
Yeah. Well, we can recognise this now closely, can't we?
Yeah.
We've seen it enough this season that we know what it looks like when someone's in harm's way.
My first response was, that's an ACL, and I was so relieved when he kind of sat up, didn't he? And they were strapping his knee up, and I thought, well, they wouldn't be doing that, you know, if it was bad. And I mean, yeah, kudos to Ian Dark. You know, what a pro. You know, he knows his onions, doesn't he?
I feel like I've been listening to Ian Dark since I was like 5 years old. He seems to be everlasting.
Absolutely, he's been around forever. He knows what he's talking about, and he's called that one absolutely bang on. The TNT commentators weren't so sure, but I suppose you don't want to speculate too much. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously they've obviously strapped it up and given it a spray or whatever, and he's been okay for a few minutes, just long enough to score the goal, and then the pain has kind of hit him, because it looked, from the pictures that have come out that I've seen online today, it does look a nasty one. It's obviously from the goalkeeper's blade.
Yeah,
as he's gone in for the challenge.
Watkins booked for his booked as well for his efforts.
Yeah, well, because I was kind of there thinking, why has he gone for that? You know, because it didn't look really on. You know, even if he'd have won it, it'd probably, you know, gone out for a throw or a goal kick or something. You know, so it was an odd one, you know, to go lunging in for. And I thought, if he's done his ACL doing that, that's really annoying. But you know, obviously it's a cut. The funny thing was that Leon Bailey was interviewed after the game over here on TNT, and
Yeah.
they asked him, what's the injury? And he went, "Oh God, it was really bad, terrible injury." And he meant it was obviously a bad cut, and it wasn't nice. It wasn't very nice to look at. But the way he said it's a really bad one, and he might have sent a few hearts fluttering with that, really. But
well, Leon Bailey certainly sent a few hearts fluttering in the second half. But as you say, Ollie Watkins didn't last much longer. Box office Jhon Durán came on. We haven't seen him in Villa colours for a few months. He's had his own injury issues in recent times. And then we go in for half-time, 1-0 up. Morgan Rogers is taken out before he gets sent off. And then on the 60th minute, I think the ball breaks down and Ajax are trying to play it from the back. McGinn passes it on to Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz, with probably his 55th assist of the season, gets Leon Bailey one-on-one with the defender. The defender thinks Leon Bailey's all left foot. But no, not so fast, my friend. Leon Bailey dances, he swings and he sways. He's doing the step-overs. And he bamboozles the young Ajax defender and just gently rolls one off his right foot into the bottom corner. 2-0 Aston Villa on the 60th minute. And what an important goal that was. Just how good is Leon Bailey now in the pantheon of Aston Villa wingers? I'm going to go ahead and say, for long-time listeners, this might be shocking to you. But I will now say, Leon Bailey has surpassed my beautiful baby boy, Anwar El Ghazi. But just where is he now, Andy, in the pantheon? Because we're maybe not talking Ashley Young levels yet. Maybe we're not talking Tony Daly level yet. But he's certainly got to be he's certainly at a Nobby Solano level at least, right?
Oh, he's above that. I think he's the performance levels and what he's doing week in, week out is on a level with the two you mentioned, Ashley Young and Tony Daly. It's the longevity that he needs now, and doing it over a number of seasons. I think he's exceptional, and I said he's a far more cultured player than I gave him credit for. I think he's been used up until this season. I think he's been used as a bit of a pace merchant, and he's far more than that. His footballing brain and some of the passes he makes and some of the things he attempts and some of the things that come off for him are absolute class, absolutely bang on. His game awareness, his intelligence, the way he picks up space, because he doesn't always play, off the striker. He was playing more as a right midfielder last night, with Diaby pushed on forward. But he's just exceptional to watch. And the biggest compliment is that goal he scored last night was an incredible bit of skill, close control, and the way to kind of beat a defender that close quarters like that in the penalty area, and just slot it past the goalkeeper. The biggest compliment I can pay is that we expect that from him now, and I'm not surprised he scores that goal. But it was exceptional, really, really good. Because the guy that he was facing is I'm not sure of the defender's name, but I know he's kind of the next cab off the rank in terms of talent at Ajax, and really kind of highly thought of young centre back. And Bailey's made a complete mug of him.
Yeah, it was it Hato?
Yeah, it could be. I'm not entirely sure. I just know they were talking about him as being, the one to watch over the next few years from that Ajax academy that just churns out superstar after superstar. So he's a young lad, obviously. So I'm not. But the fact is that Bailey scores that goal. A lot of people can't score that goal because it's too close in and it's too tight for him to do anything. you
He's
might win a
done him up
corner
like a
or,
kipper.
yeah.
Young.
He's
I'm going to go with Hato. Hato was
Yeah.
was a hater at that moment. Oh dear, you can see I need some Lemsip. I've got a little bit of man flu over here, dear listener. So bear with the terrible dad jokes. They are more frequent than normal today. So that was
put the just giving link up at the end. For the Lemsip fund.
Yeah. If you knew what healthcare cost over here, you'd be yeah. Anyway, that's a different topic for a different day. And then a few minutes later, Jhon Durán, let's just say, had caused absolute chaos. That when he came on, again, sometimes for us, sometimes against us, but I think these Ajax defenders had never seen anything quite like it. If nothing else, this guy is one hell of a physical specimen. He's big, he's strong, he's unwieldy, he's fast. He's almost like a Keenan Davis mixed with Usain Bolt. It's ridiculous. Like his physical profile is, and bearing in mind he's still young, he still hasn't filled out yet. He is so strong and fast that it's Haaland-esque in terms of physical profile. It's just impossible to stop. And I think a second before the red card, he's had a shot, bounced his defender off like he wasn't there, which is the last person I remember doing that was Christian Benteke against old Chris Smalling. Just completely bounced, threw the guy off. And just incredible, and he's kind of shanked one wide there. But there's a lovely ball over the top from John McGinn on the 66th minute. Villa were already 2-0 up. And Sivert Mannsverk wanted to have a piece of the man and a piece of Jhon Durán's shirt, pulled him down right in front of the referee. Jhon Durán's racing through, don't know if he gets there or not. Didn't matter, second yellow card. That a stonewall as a yellow card, as you're going to see, Andy. That one, fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just one of those. He didn't know what to do. He kind of had to do it, but he was, it was a daft one, wasn't it? And having already been booked, no, they can have no complaints. I think even Jordan Henderson after the game said, although he'd argued with the ref about it, it's probably one that they had no real complaints about in the end.
Lots of boos for Jordan Henderson. Were you on that? Were you booing old Jord?
Well, I wasn't at the game, so I'm not one to sit in my house booing, really. But yeah, I am. He's he's going to divide opinion.
I think the feelings are pretty unanimous, actually, Andy. I think he might have brought people together.
I think certainly, perhaps amongst the non-Liverpool fan base, I guess, but he's obviously a big hero there. But yeah, I mean, the kind of the circumstances of him moving to Saudi Arabia are, pretty abysmal, aren't they? Really, and the fact it hasn't worked out for him he won't get any sympathy off anyone, and now he's playing in a probably the poorest iteration of Ajax in living memory. So it's not a great time for him, is it? And I bet he hasn't come to Villa Park very often and lost 4-0.
Probably never. He's certainly come and won 4-0. But I don't think he's lost 4-0.
He wasn't in the team that lost 7-2 at Villa, I believe. So he's, this is a place he's used to winning.
Well, he didn't win last night, Jordan. And another person who didn't win was Diego Carlos. His return from a hamstring injury lasted only 74 minutes, and he went down again. Diego Carlos with all the durability of a custard cream this season. Injured again, on big wages. I'm beginning to lose, not patience, because he seems like a great guy, and I think he's played well. He was really important in our season. He's been really important for us. But do we need someone on the wrong side of 30 who's injury prone on 100 grand a week, who isn't necessarily in your top he's probably your fourth choice when everyone's fit next season, Andy. I mean, not to get carried away here, but I feel like Diego might be someone to wave bye-bye to in the summer for FFP reasons, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll look at that, and I'm sure if they get any kind of decent interest in him, they'll consider it. I think the problem, obviously, he's had an incredibly serious injury, and it's, I think, probably the first time in his career really he's experienced anything like that, and he's come back, and the team has obviously moved on to a completely different level in that time. We've talked endlessly about the incredible turnaround, and that all happened in the space of whilst Diego was injured, and it's just really unfortunate. And I think he's suffering now from the fact that he's getting the follow-on injuries, isn't he? He's got over the big one, but it's all these other things. He's pulling hamstrings and pulling muscles and all that sort of thing, which can be a part of the fallout of having a big injury like that, really, and trying to get back to fitness. It's a shame for him. It's it really is. I feel devastated for him that he's had to go off again. Hopefully it's just not too bad. It's just maybe a 2 or 3 week one, and he can resume again. But yeah, he is on big wages. I think from a business perspective, you'd be looking to move him on. But from a human perspective, I'd like to see him, be part of what we're doing, because he's incredibly popular.
He seems like
a good player.
He does seem like a great guy, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he looks like an absolute Adonis, which also gets him brownie points in my book. I just feel like those factors that I mentioned, and it is probably a little bit harsh, but I'm just like, you're on the wrong side of 30. You're on over 100 grand a week. In terms of a centre back, if everyone's fit, Mings, Konza, and Pau all are ahead of you, for me anyway. And you're becoming injury prone, and yeah. So to me, and it is harsh. I'm just feeling like, well, hopefully maybe he can turn it around and he can have a run of games. Speaking of someone who might need a run of games, Jhon Durán. He pops up. Moussa Diaby again flying through. They couldn't deal with him. He a little bit fortuitous. The ball breaks to Jhon Durán, and he may have popped the ball. He hit it so hard, he waxed the goal frame, and the referee's watch vibrates. He points to the spot, and Jhon Durán is on the score sheet again. And I think it's something like 6 goals in 8 starts or something bonkers this season for Jhon Durán. I mean, those numbers are hard to argue with, although he's a little bit unorthodox, Andy. How do you feel about our Colombian youngster?
I think box office is a good way of putting it, but in a way that it's not always good. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you might pay for a boxing match that is a bit wild and finishes after 2 minutes. So it's not always the best quality, but it's exciting. It's always exciting when he comes on the field. There's always an air of what's going to happen next. What's he going to do? He's always likely to do something. Whether that's a crazy 2-footed challenge, or whether it's banging one in the top corner. He's just an exciting player to have around. He's full of energy. He does things his way, and I think that's where he may clash a little bit with the manager. The manager wants people to do it his way, not their own way, and I think that's where there might be a sticking point with him at the moment. But certainly he's good for a goal, isn't he? Whenever he comes on, and he's got one hell of a shot on him. I mean, this is Thomas Hitzelsberger levels, isn't it? The way he hits the ball,
yeah,
the way he strikes the ball.
Morgan Rogers hit one in the first half and I was like, "Oh, this guy can hit a
Yeah.
ball." Like the ball moved. He missed, but it moved. But Durán is a different level. It is Hitzelsberger alike, and I think a young Benteke as well. He could hit the ball pretty hard. I think he then ruptured his Achilles, and he could never strike the ball quite the same way again. But I digress. There is a chance, bearing in mind what we saw with Ollie Watkins, even though it's just a cut, definitely it's not going to be a long-term thing, but he's had stitches, and stitches, particularly on your knee, obviously your knee has a great deal of movement, particularly when you're a professional footballer. It's not a foregone conclusion that Ollie Watkins is going to be fit enough to start. He may be fit enough for the bench, so this could be Jhon Durán's first Premier League start against West Ham. If that is the case, Andy, are you going to be hiding behind the sofa biting your fingernails, or do you think that Jhon Durán is ready to start a Premier League football match for Aston Villa as our lone striker?
Not by choice, but I think you could. I think you can. I think he can do it. I think he has the ability. He is at the required level, and he's more than capable of doing it. The problem you have with him is obviously that chaotic element to him, and when you're trying to pull off kind of highly intricate or choreographed forward play between players, you need someone more like Ollie Watkins who's going to be in the right place. He's going to be where you expect him to be. I'm not always sure that Jhon Durán is.
I don't think he ever is. I think he's almost exclusively in the wrong place, actually.
He does his own thing, but
even for his goal, like he was running side by side with Diaby when he really should be angling a run and pulling someone away. I don't think he's ever in the right place, actually. But this is what happens. I spoke about Morgan Rogers in this guys a couple of weeks ago. This is what, if you're going to buy a young project to work on, you have to expect them to be a project. You have to expect them to be incomplete, imperfect. You have to expect them to require coaching up. And there's but the Premier League is obviously pretty unforgiving. But with his elements and with his shot, with his heading ability, I think he could be a real asset against West Ham. If not in the West Ham penalty area, in our penalty area, we know that James Ward-Prowse will be bombarding us with free kicks and corners, and we've been weak from those. So at least aerially, I think his physical presence, if nothing else, could be useful for us on Sunday. If Ollie Watkins isn't fit, touch wood, of course, that he is.
Yeah.
So
I think. Yeah.
Then our French international just polished it off. It was a 1-2 with Tielemans. The Ajax fullback has got his interception all wrong. A bit like us against Spurs on Sunday. When it rains, it pours, and once you're 3-0 down to 10 men, you're always liable to concede again. And they did. Moussa Diaby just so fast, fleet of foot, and there was no question in my mind he was going to bury this one, Andy. It was just a question: was he going to roll it into the bottom corner, or put it through the keeper's legs, or around the goalkeeper? But he's decided instead to smash one into the top corner, at the near side of the goalkeeper, which is not a finish you normally see. But it was so hard and so fast and so close that the goalkeeper couldn't do anything about it. Moussa Diaby, you've been critical, I've been critical, everyone's been critical. Everyone that's watched him in the beginning of the season and for the rest of the season has seen someone who has been low on confidence, low on form, low on output, low on productivity. My main critique of him is I think he's very passenger-like in games if he's not on it, and we're not necessarily loving life when we need to carry a player. Whereas yesterday he looked more back to his old self. Do you think there's a chance now with the France call-up and this goal and him feeling a little bit happier in himself that we could see the first half of the season Moussa Diaby return, Andy? Or do you think he's just we don't do you think we shouldn't expect too much from him this season? Let him bed in, and then we'll see him again next year once he's had another pre-season under his belt.
I think it could be a really important game for him. This Ajax game. I think the performance was excellent. I felt like the fans appreciated the performance as well. You could hear his name being sung plenty, which will obviously he's still a popular player, isn't he? He's been very, very frustrating, and I think possibly his price tag doesn't help with that. I think obviously when you're spending your Aston Villa and you're spending that amount. I mean, they talk. I don't know exactly the amount, but they say 50 million. That's new territory, isn't it, for Villa? And you want some output from that, really. But he's like anyone coming to a new league, playing in a new system. He needs time. He needs to be able to settle. And of course, he did go off like a train, didn't he? And he was excellent. And we've spoken on here about how brilliant he was and how lucky we were to have him and all this sorts of thing. And he's just completely dropped in his performance levels. And maybe the form of Bailey hasn't really helped him in that regard, because perhaps he's watching Bailey thinking, this is what I should be doing for the team.
Yeah.
But I think the goal last night and the France call-up will do him the world of good. I mean, the France call-up's interesting because we look at it and think, well, blimey, how's he done that? Why have they gone for him? He's obviously someone who's been involved with the setup anyway, but he's playing in a top 4 team in the Premier League.
Yeah, I guess.
So,
yeah, we don't think about ourselves like that, do we?
No, exactly. So
a bit like Konza getting into the England squad. I was like, he's not been playing as well as he was playing, and he's been injured. But I was like, we're top 4 now, so maybe we just our players walk in to the England squad. I don't know.
I mean, it makes a difference, doesn't it?
It does make a difference, and we're quarterfinalists. Let me say it again: we're quarterfinalists in Europe and 4th in the Premier League with 10 games to go. That is pretty freaking spectacular. Moussa Diaby fee is 43.2 million, with a potential another 8 million add-on, so it could get to 50 million, but it's not 50 million yet. But either way, he is our record signing. So yeah, it's interesting that Leverkusen apparently wanted 88 million for him, according to Sky Sports the season before. No one would touch it for that, but 42 million pounds for Moussa Diaby, 4-0 win, and we have been drawn against Lille, formerly of former Aston Villa player Joe Cole. I believe turned out for Lille. I believe that it is one of the harder draws that we could have gotten. Lille have quite a history in terms of developing players, the likes of Eden Hazard, Pepe, and our own Luca Digne came through Lille. So a tough draw by all accounts, Andy. But if you want to win, you got to beat the best teams, is my kind of motto. Also, Idrissa Gana Gueye came through Lille. Imagine that. Another one of our Yves Bissouma through Lille, Eden Hazard, Victor Osimhen, Rafael Leao. I mean, hey, they obviously know what they're doing in terms of the recruitment, Andy.
Yeah, I wonder who Unai Emery might pick up from Lille when he's researching them, like he did with Morgan Rogers at Middlesbrough. But I think it's a big tie, isn't it? Again, it doesn't feel quite as starry as Ajax, does it? Obviously, but I mean, I think they're about 4th in Ligue 1, aren't they? And they're you just never know with these teams. I think for certain will be favourites. I think the French league isn't the best league in the world, apart from Paris Saint-Germain. So, we will be favourites, but it's always tough. And I think being at home first as well, I'm not too sure about that. I always think if you with this Villa team, if you're away first and you can be anything sort of 1-0 or 2-1 down, maybe. If you're still in the game, you've always got a chance at Villa Park. And if it's the other way around, if they do a number on us at home, it's a really tough ask to go there and turn it round.
Lille currently sitting fourth in Ligue 1 in France, sitting there quite nicely, and a really interesting tie, that one, Andy. And then I believe we are then facing. Well, let's not worry about the semi-finals just yet. Let's just focus on Lille. But that's the draw. All right. So that's it for the Europa League. Let's have a quick preview of the West Ham game, and what you're feeling about this, Andy. Again, as I mentioned, we'll know what Spurs have done the day before. Man United don't play this weekend, but we will know the Spurs result by the time that we go to Upton Park. It's not Upton Park anymore, is it? The West Ham Stadium, whatever it's called. We haven't won there since Gerard Houllier, someone said in the group chat earlier today. So well over a decade at this point since we've won at away at West Ham. The biggest question is, obviously, there's no McGinn. We've already discussed about maybe there's going to be a 4-3-3. We don't know if Ollie Watkins is going to be fit. We don't know if Diego Carlos is going to be fit, but we do have Konza back, which should relax us there a little bit. Pau Torres got through his first 90 minutes as well. That's another bonus from the Ajax game, so hopefully he's ready to step in now. So what's your predicted 11, Andy? How do you think we're going to line up, assuming that Watkins is okay?
Well, I mean, the back four sort of picks itself, doesn't it? I think now.
You wouldn't go Longley and Pau, you'd go Konza and Cash?
I would personally Cash at right back, Konza and Torres in the middle, and Dean or Moreno. I think Dean might get the shout for that one. And then, I mean, the midfield. You're looking at Douglas Luiz kind of playing more as the 6, aren't you? Unless Irugbunam comes in, which I would do actually. I think I'd bring him in to play with Dougie, and perhaps have Tielemans just sitting to the left. I'd go with Bailey, Diaby, and whoever the striker is. Hopefully it will be Watkins. That would be my choice, really. If Watkins isn't fit, I'd be more likely, I think, to go to play with perhaps Rodgers and Diaby up top. Yeah, I mean, it's I think we have to just kind of hopefully we'll just go there and play our game how we were before, really, and we won't be trying anything too spectacular, but just try and obviously keep the ball off West Ham, particularly. They're dangerous when they win the ball near their own penalty area, because they just break so quickly. When Bowen and Antonio and Kudus now get going, they're absolutely frightening. Breaking forward, really, and Mohamed Kudus is an absolute game changer for West Ham. They've lost Declan Rice, but they've got this guy, and he's I mean, the first goal he scored last night for them was absolutely superb. A run from inside his own half, and finished really well. So it's going to be a tough game. They're going to be flying after last night. Villa are going to be feeling confident as well. We're a better side than they are. It's just whether we can take our chances, really, and take advantage of the possession that we have, because we will have the ball probably a lot more than they do.
Yeah, I would be resistant to. I think I liked what I saw in the second half with the 4-3-3. I don't think Tielemans can play in a 2. I don't think you can play Tielemans and Dougie in a 2. Is Irugbunam ready? I don't know. I guess it's kind of sink or swim. If he's going to play in a 2 with Douglas Luiz, we'll find out. But I feel like it protects everyone a little bit more if you've got 3 in there. A midfield 3 of Douglas Luiz, Irugbunam and Tielemans I would be more comfortable with. And then with the 4-3-3, the 2 wide players in Diaby and Bailey. and then you've got Jhon, Durán or Ollie Watkins up front. Actually, I think the 4-3-3 certainly suits Watkins. He played that at Aston Villa for years under Dean Smith, so he knows that system well. And certainly we saw last night that Bailey and Diaby and they can switch wings and do what they want, and I think that could be quite threatening on the counter attack. But you just look at the West Ham; they got a bunch of big bruisers. Zuma, the cat lover. Declan Rice is gone, obviously, but you've got Big Souček in there, who's a big, nasty, grizzled vet. Sofal, their right back, nasty. Like they're Antonio's physical as well. They're brutish, our West Ham. So I just feel like having the three in the middle and might be beneficial there for us. And I suppose the one good thing, if with erupted coming in and potentially Durán starting as well, is both of those players are bigger and stronger and better in the air, certainly at defending set pieces than the two people they'll be replacing. And McGinn is a Munchkinland man, and Watkins obviously is very good in the air, but Jhon Durán's 6'2" and got an incredible leap on him as well. So, and also physically stronger than Watkins. So I think that could be a winner. Although I imagine with as you alluded to, Andy, with there being so much detail in Unai Emery notebook in terms of how attacks go. I don't know if he's just going to pull a 4-3-3 out of the hat in 2 days with 2 days of training, and one of those being a recovery day. It might be a little bit much to ask without so much time, but a lot's going to depend on, as we say, who is fit. All right, what's your score prediction for West Ham versus Aston Villa, Andy?
I really feel like we need something out of this game. I think it's going to be really tough. I don't think we've won at West Ham in the league for years.
Not since Julio.
Yeah, Julio. So really, really tough. I suppose you could argue we've got to do it sometime, and we are a better side, but missing such important players, and they seem like they've got a lot of their guys fit and ready to go. I'd be happy if we got out of there with a draw, and I'm going to go for 2-2.
All right, I'm going 2-1 Aston Villa. I think we win, and I also don't think Tottenham are going to beat Fulham away. I'm going to put that there. I'm not saying they're going to lose. Yeah. I don't think they're going to win. But we'll see. Who knows? All right. Thank you so much, Andy, for joining us. I said I was going to do 30 minutes, and here we are after an hour. I've got to go. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please stay tuned to the website, to the socials for all of our content. Hopefully, we'll have a regular podcast for you next week, all being well. This is Gather Round Again, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you in association with underagaslitlamp.com. Please like and subscribe and share, and hopefully you've enjoyed the show as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. Thank you so much. Good evening, and up the Villa.
Thank you for tuning in to Gather Round Again, an Aston Villa podcast. Please like down below and subscribe. Up the Villa.
Daly and Atkinson on one of those great runs. What a run by Daly and Atkinson! Atkinson again! And it's Dwight York!